Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Secret Origins of Mint Condition. I am your host, James, and welcome back to another 80s cartoon retrospective. We've done a few of these now, and of course, to do these, I have assembled our expert panel of 80s cartoon pop culture experts. So, rejoining the podcast, all friends of the show, all experts in all things 80s cartoon, Kevin Lafari is back with us today.
Hello, hello, Cobra.
Yes, and also joining us, Keith Bethon is back with us today.
Yo, Joe?
And of course, joining us, John Whittemore is back with us today as well.
Glad to be here, and yeah, I don't think I know which one to use, but it would be Yo-Joe from me. But I think another name.
Yeah, so audience, if you've not looked at the title for today's episode before you press play today, we are talking about G.I. Joe, the movie, which we talked about last year, talking about when we did our Transformers, the movie episode. We finally made it to rewatch this movie. And as I was saying before I turned on the mics and started recording, I went into this movie thinking it would be like watching Star Trek the Motion Picture, which, you know, we have that other episode, our two-part Star Trek the Motion Picture, which we all went into that. But I ended up, I think, liking it more than I thought I was going to like it. But those are my comments I'm going to start with. I'll turn to the panel. So, Kevin, how long has it been since you've seen this movie, and what did you think watching it for this episode?
Well, it'd been like, I don't know, a lifetime since I'd seen it, but I loved it then, and I still love it. I feel like a little bit like Stefan from SNL. Like, this movie has everything: ancient secret societies, like a pathetic half-man, half-snake person, and someone getting a snake through their freaking heart. What's better than that? Nothing. So I'd say this movie was as good as I remember it, which is, it's not to say the best, but it was enjoyable.
I mean, Duke was only in a coma.
You're right. He's fine. He's fine.
Duke has recovered. Yay!
I feel like there's a lot of this movie that's good, and then there's also a lot of this movie that is not good. I don't think something has to be overall good. I can enjoy some parts, and I think this movie has a lot of enjoyable parts. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of classic G.I. Joe stuff and just some weird, trippy science fiction stuff that they were trying out. But,
which is my jam.
Yeah. Keith, what were your thoughts watching it when you first saw it, if you remember, and watching it now?
I can't remember the last time I saw it, because my thought going in was this movie is crap after the first introduction, and I can probably turn it off after that. And while they definitely could have quit while they were ahead, which is probably after about 3 minutes elapsed in this, because the intro is just maybe one of the best things
the best part
ever. Yeah, like, I mean, animation wise, that's some of the best 3 minutes probably you can ever watch on screen anywhere. And then the rest is, it's okay. Like, they had ideas, and I respect that they explored those ideas, but it's also very similar to Transformers the movie, which I guess is not surprising. And I'm going to say they were biting off of Transformers because Transformers is better, obviously. But this started production first, so chances are, like, this probably started with those ideas, and then, like...
Which is maybe why I would argue that Transformers does every beat better.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many moments in this where I took notes while I was watching it, and I was like...
Same.
Okay, well, that's just the same thing that happens in the Transformers the movie, but, you know, not as good because they're not robots. But yeah, it's not bad. And watching commentary where people explain, like, what was going on definitely helps you understand why it turned out the way it did, which, while not great, is definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be when I came into this.
Yeah, the commenting audience, in case you know, just to give you an insight what we're talking about in this podcast, there's a commentary with the writer Bugs Dixon on YouTube. I forget the podcast that was on. I'll give it credit, but yeah, he's the writer. He gives a very detailed explanation of why he did the things he did. Some of it were his choices, some of their Hasbro made choices that he had to fulfill. But it was very enlightening into this. But before we get more into that, John, what were your thoughts originally seeing this movie, if you can remember, and your thoughts rewatching it for this podcast?
Oh boy. Well, so when I originally watched the movie as a kid, getting it on whatever 1987, 88 when I got that VHS copy, I was obsessed. I watched it so many times that when rewatching it, I was able to actually remember.
Wow.
Before rewatching it, I had no memory of most of it. But this clearly like brought me back. I was like, oh yeah, I remember watching all of this and going through all of it and loved it. Watched it numerous times. I I don't know what to think about my younger self now because I'm watching it now. I'm like, what kind of crazy fever dream is this? Um, I really don't know. I don't quite have the words because it's a mishmash of so many different genres. The animation is what stands out as being really really good, especially for that time. As you know, it's head and shoulders above what was on TV. But I was just sort of like, so what drugs were the writers on? What bad notes did they get from the studio? Then I watched the commentaries and got more perspective on it. But it just none of it made any sense to me. I'm watching this as an adult, like I can see as a kid and be like, well, yeah, you just jump from one thing to the other and the people are there. It makes total sense. We're like, so how did they get to the Himalayas? I mean, they had magic.
Oh
Um,
yeah, the travel times is like worse than Game of Thrones
Game of
season
Thrones
8.
season.
It's
Yep. That's it. You nailed it. I was like, that's literally what I was thinking of. I was like, wow, like Jon Snow really got to the north really fast. I'm like, yeah, and Falcon got to Sergeant Slaughter really
yeah,
fast, and now he's
everyone
back
gets to the
again.
Himalayas or anywhere else on Earth in like 3 minutes flat. It's all good. Mid battle.
But all I could think the whole time was, yeah, so what blackmail do they have on the various voice actors to get them involved in this
Oh,
production?
you
Like
mean Don Johnson and
Don
Burgess
Johnson,
Meredith?
Burgess Meredith, yeah, like
Well, I mean, I'm guessing it was a lot of money. For Transformers, they hired some big names, and I imagine since they were gonna release this, that's why they also got some big
yeah.
names.
But
I
I
don't
don't
know what
know.
they felt about it afterwards.
Yeah, like I think it had like it had the interesting concepts. Some felt GI Joe, others didn't. But as a whole, it's just a big giant old mess.
Did anyone prep by watching the cartoon show before the movie at all? I I watched Arise Serpentor Arise, which is like a 5 episode arc, and then I watched the movie. Did anyone else?
That would
I
have been a
did.
good idea, so I did not do that, obviously.
I didn't do that. Kevin,
Well, I
thank
did
you.
watch it at 1.5 times speed, so.
Well, thank you for coming into this podcast with doing your homework. You're better than the host.
What?
And me.
It actually plays almost directly right into G.I. Joe the movie. I didn't watch the season in between because it was the start of the second season of Rise of Pentor Rise. But then I was reading production stuff, and they're essentially written to be almost back to back, it seemed.
And after the movie, was that when they transitioned to DIC, or?
Yes, after
Yes.
the movie,
Yeah.
they had a different. Yeah, there was a different team. It was Sunbow moved on to whatever the new one was.
Well,
And they
in the
they sort of
interview, they were
retconned
saying DIC stood for Do It Cheaper. So it's like, all right, I don't need to
There you
watch
go.
that because
There
they're
you
like,
go.
it's pretty much terrible after the movie.
Yeah.
I remember the toys from that era, but I don't remember really watching the show because it was on at weird times by that point. It wasn't your mainstay. Like G.I. Joe started and it was that 4 o'clock, 3:30 after school
Yeah, the Sunbow
slot.
slot is what I saw.
And by the time it got to like the DSC era, it was like some Saturdays or earlier in the day, and it was much harder to follow. But I was more familiar with those toys because that's when I was like able to get more of the toys. And a lot of those toys were just rebranded like 1983 toys, where they just put the Python skin on it, and we're like Python Patrol.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, so that's post movie, and that's where I got like a ton of the toys, and they were really good toys to be fair that were going into the movie and post movie, which is that's the purpose of this movie. Like that is the thing that the commentators and people are realizing. I was like, yeah, like this movie was literally made for the purpose of selling toys.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the aspect of it that I like the least. I mean, unsurprisingly, I think it's a tale of two movies: a sci-fi movie and then an action toy line movie, where they introduce the Rawhides.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what was Sergeant Slaughter's people?
Oh, they were the slaughterhouse people.
The Renegades.
The Renegades.
The Renegades. I remember getting the Renegades as like a Christmas present. It was like the 3-pack GI Joe figures, and it was the Renegades. And I was always
Did
like,
somebody watch GoBots or something and they stole that name? Like, what was the deal with that?
yeah, but it felt like GoBots because these ones felt they were so derivative. It was like, oh come on, like I still played with them a lot, but I always wanted like I always wanted the original GI Joes, which by the time that came out were not accessible in stores because they took them off the shelves. They didn't produce them anymore. But I always felt like there was something more. Even as a little kid, I was like, no, there's something more genuine to that first generation of GI Joe that wasn't expressed in the toys later on, which just felt like, oh, they took this one and added more color. Oh, this guy just like has a handgun and that's all he does.
And I
like,
think didn't they start like putting a mirror finish on all the jets?
Yes, that was another.
It's like, okay, even as a child, I saw through that one.
That was like their high tech. They had a name. I remember.
Yeah.
I remember the commercial was like saying stealth mode GI Joe.
Yeah, stealth with
mode.
mirrors.
Yeah, so
They weren't laser proof because, like in Transformers, if they ever sprayed a new one with like
they were laser proof. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. See,
yeah, it makes
crossover,
sense,
baby, crossover.
Well, I do appreciate in GI Joe though, with the writer talking, he's like the main Joes that all got captured were the ones being phased out. At least they weren't outright killed.
He said that.
Right? They just didn't shoot them on camera and then dump them into space.
Hey, back off, dude.
Well, speaking of, I think as you mentioned, Keith, like listening to the writer talk about it, GI Joe was in production before Transformers, and I think that's where they took the beat to kill Optimus Prime, thinking like that'd be fine, you know. So it's really GI Joe the movie's fault that we lost. It sounds like that we lost Optimus Prime the way we did.
His explanation was interesting. The part where he said he thought it would have played better in GI Joe because the target audience for GI Joe skewed a little older than for Transformers, but I don't know. Like I don't really agree with him. I mean, he was trying to recount how he thought it went down for the parents in the movie, and he was saying that in the Transformers movie, like the parents probably didn't know what was happening, and then just everyone's crying and it's horrible, and like you kids are upset. But I don't know.
Here's the question: did you like Duke as much as you liked Optimus?
No.
And I think
that has more to do with it. Yeah.
That's the question itself. That means that they could have killed Duke off because what I was reading was that like the Duke toy had been discontinued, which is why they were in part given instructions to be like, yep, you can kill off characters who are being discontinued. So they were like, yeah, and Falcon, like Rodimus Prime, was going to be like the up and coming,
the new
problematic,
hotness,
but will eventually be the new leader. Underneath the general, but like the new
I do want to get into Falcon's character a bit because I don't like him.
I don't know if anybody likes him, but let's also put that in context here. Who really liked any character that Don Johnson played ever? They weren't likable. They could be cool, they could be interesting, but you're always like, and I don't know why we're watching him. That's like Don Johnson in every movie and every TV show.
Hot Rod was much more likable, I feel like, than Falcon.
Well. Yes. I was going to say, he's an irredeemable. He lets a spy in to photograph when they have the supreme commander of the enemy, that he goes and leaves guard duty to harass a coworker. Clearly, I hate him. But, like, I think Rodimus isn't an irredeemable person, and I'd argue Falcon is. Falcon's not, like, Anakin level, where I killed the women and children too, but he's approaching it. I don't know how they thought you could redeem that person. As an adult, I don't care about him at all. He should have gotten Snake.
I think it would have been more like, as an adult, I'm like, yeah, he should have gotten Snake, and Duke should have been like, well, I failed to save this idiot half brother. And I love that it was specifically half brother. Like there was no reason for it to say like half brother as opposed to brother. It was like half brother, which is already like, really
why complicate
this guy? He's really not like. Listen, like I'm doing him a favor here, but really don't let this blow back on me. That's what Duke is saying. He's like, don't really let this reflect on me. He's only a half brother because he knew what he was getting himself into.
See, like I think I hate Falcon as much as Keith hates Wile Cat. Like so in my perfect movie, he gets a snake through his heart, and then Duke and Serpentor high-five each other, and then that's the end.
That puts a weird image in my head, dude. Are they high-fiving over his dead body? I mean,
yes, with the snake protruding out of it, yes.
Don't like it.
Anyways.
Did anyone else get, like, as soon as the Sumbo logo comes up, you're like, ooh, you get, like, I don't know.
Oh, it hits the wave.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that hit me right in the feels, as the young kids say.
Yes, yeah. And going back to, like, then it's followed up with, like, the best 3 minutes of animation that we were exposed to at the time as kids, like that opening for GI.
Oh my
so
god,
good.
that was still fresh in my brain.
Why didn't they just shoot that movie? Like that would have been an amazing movie.
I mean, I think the production value alone would have been that it would have just been a 3-minute movie.
I mean, I probably took them a long. I mean, I don't know what the production value on that was, but probably most of their budget, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably. Between
Let's just see
Don
if we can...
Johnson, the coke they were doing, and the opening, that was it.
But that was the thing. When rewatching it, I had not remembered anything except that Cobra Law existed. When rewatching it, I was going back in time, and I'm like, oh, I remember as a kid now replaying that first 3 minutes over and over and over again, because obviously even to like a little kid version of me, that 3 minutes was so phenomenal that I would just sit down, pop the tape in to watch that. And then knowing I didn't have enough time to watch a movie, just to like, I wanted to see that scene again, because it was, the animation, the action, the angles, the music, everything, it just worked. And had that been an entire movie of things like that, very quickly the movie takes a very different turn from that, where they're like, hey, we gave you like the best version of what was on the TV show you watched.
Yeah.
And
it was a good encapsulation, and it told you the visual story of the good guys, bad guys.
Right.
The good guys saved the day.
Now we're done with that, and we're going to
kick-ass soundtrack to that part.
Yeah,
it's also was like, and now for something totally different. Rest of the movie.
I mean, that opening has like all the characters you wanted to see in the movie who got sidelined, basically. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to see all of the classic Joes in this movie, and like, nope, they get captured in 2 minutes into Cobra Law.
Again, at least not killed and shot out.
Yes, I appreciate I don't know if they could have gotten away with that, but I know the writer probably in this commentary kept saying there's casualties in war, so he probably wasn't up for killing all of those Joes if
he
they
was
allowed.
big on that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean that's part of the thing with the movie, though. I mean, not that I was not the biggest GI Joe person, and I had like there's so many GI Joes, like a familiarity with the main cast is kind of hard to like say past, like, oh, I like the way this one looked.
I think they diluted their brand by having so many, unless maybe like there's enough that someone could latch on to everyone. But for me, it was like too ensemble, and I never like, other than like Storm Shadow, Shipwreck,
that's what I was thinking. Snake Eyes,
Baroness,
well, the writer even admitted that I did think it was cool that he said it's nice when creators have an eye towards the fans, which you would think would be obvious, but like is not always the case. But I did like when he said, I wanted to make sure every character was in there, even if he was like just going to like pick up the phone or whatever, because like that's some kid's favorite GI Joe, and like they're going with the expectation of seeing like their favorite Joe, and at least they get that fleeting moment, if nothing else.
Right. Well, I was surprised also, like, I mean, I'm not surprised, because I guess corporate mentality at the time, like they were like, they won't miss these characters if we get rid of them.
It's crazy,
like,
right?
No one's gonna be sad.
Yeah, it's weird. You create a whole show, and then you're like, nah, no one cares about the crap I've made.
We want these characters to be beloved because we want to sell you all the toys, but also you can just like let them die, right? That's cool. You're 8.
Yeah,
that'll be an easy adjustment for you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Transformers obviously did the exact same thing, I think, for at least to kill. But it's interesting. Just going back to our Thundercats episode, they didn't do that. I mean, they did introduce new characters, but they didn't like, okay, let's kill Panthro.
Well, I mean, that was, I think, one of the things it sets, as a super fan, it sets Thundercats.
Go, Kevin, go.
Let me be defend Thundercats. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that Thundercats did well, and was very different than every other 80s thing, is that they went in with storytelling and lesson learning, and they talked to the toy makers and not the other way around. Toy makers didn't tell them what to do.
Was Thundercats the one where they had like a child psychologist?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so like that's already like way different than Hasbro.
And they had like lessons plans printed up, and they would send to schools so the kids can talk about the lesson they learned.
Yeah, I mean, come on. That's above and beyond right there.
Right. I mean, Rankin Bass did go out of business a little later, so maybe it was way above and beyond, but we enjoyed the fruits of that. And I think
I mean, He-Man did the same thing too. I mean, they didn't also kill their main character. It was not like we killed He-Man or we killed Man-at-Arms or something.
Or like Orko's Deadwind episode, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't. I don't know. They got around the whole toy part of it, which is again mostly.
Maybe because everything of theirs was a repaint that it didn't matter.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, I mean, same body, new head.
Kevin.
I'm just saying how it is.
Well, I mean,
like G.I. Joe, they had the rubber bands in the toys. You needed that's some money right there. And the
rubber bands are key.
Okay. Um, yeah.
Did anyone else notice? I mean, it was like a little. I mean, the movie, they were obviously cutting costs, but
No.
when they bust Serpentor out of jail, GI Joe Barracks is not even spelled correctly.
Yes, I did notice that.
Oh my
Barraks on the barracks. I was like, really? Like it's not prominent, but it's not. It's very
So I'm
noticeable.
guessing the animators. I forget where it was animated, but I would guess
I don't
it
think
was
it was
not
here.
here.
Yeah, I don't think it
Yeah,
was here.
and I would imagine that's the
I'm not
cause.
blaming the animators. Like somebody should have caught that beforehand.
Oh yeah, quality control? No, come on.
No. I mean, I don't know how much time they gave themselves to put this movie out, but I don't know how much quality control they were like
Yeah.
aiming for
Yeah.
in this movie. But that is
That said, I do like many parts of this movie.
Oh yeah.
I like Cobra Law in its entirety, even with its stupid name that was a placeholder.
Yes. How ridiculous is that?
Oh my god! What executive was like? Oh man!
Oh, Shangri-La. I get it. Let's keep that.
Yeah.
I'm married to
Let's
that
make
now.
everyone go la 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 as their yeah.
It's funny that like the writer, as we said, he tried to talk them out of it, and they're like,
Yeah.
"No, this is good.
Give
This
me
is
5
good."
minutes. I can make it. But no, sorry. We're moving
That ship
on.
sailed. That ship sailed.
No 5 minutes for you.
Yeah, I mean, just 5 more minutes. What we could have gotten with 5 more minutes of time.
He did say it cost roughly $600,000 per episode.
I don't know how.
My notes for that were exclamation point, question mark. Like what? How is that possible? Did he miss
said
a zero or something? Because
maybe in adjusted money, I don't know. But like back then, that would have been like so much.
Even for COVID inflation, like that can't be right.
Yeah,
I was trying to figure out if he meant 600,000 a season or 600,000 an episode. I don't know if
he did say per episode. Like that cannot be right.
Maybe he meant season.
Yeah, that can't be right.
I don't know.
Because that's a
come on, Buzz. Come on our show and tell us what the real deal is. Or James's show.
Yeah, well, we'll try. Well, we'll try to get him on to see if we can talk some truth about the budget for GI Joe. Of course, the other thing is, which I appreciate, he explained the mutation of Cobra Commander, but didn't really explain the logic behind hiring a scientist to lead your military.
Yeah,
not even remotely.
Or an aristocrat. I think he was an aristocrat scientist.
He was. Yep.
So maybe it's like old landed gentry, where he was, a citizen scientist, and then you can't do science, and of course he has like eyes all over his face.
Yeah, but if he's a royal,
send him out to the world.
Also, figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, he also wasn't very good at it either, and they I'm assuming the story is that Cobra Law's been funding Cobra this whole time.
They don't make money on their own, so I mean, one would hope, right? Mysterious benefactor of Cobra Commander that sends a little note each month. Please keep my cousin employed, otherwise I'll pull my funding.
Nepotism.
Yep.
Or maybe they just didn't want him there. Maybe it was just like, let's just spend some money, get him out of here.
It's like, listen.
Yeah, it's like,
so
have you heard him talk? It's so terrible. Let's get him out of here.
This is an early Bugs Life story, basically, where they're just like, you have an idea to go away and do stuff? Yeah, do that.
Yeah. Well, I think this movie could be revamped, if you look at it from a certain point of view, to quote Obi-Wan, as like a magic surrealism movie of someone discovering that they're the chosen one of an ancient civilization and that they're meant to lead them to salvation. You could call it, he could be Paul Muad'Dib, he could be John Carter. I'm talking about Suspentor here. He fails. He fails.
Doesn't turn out so good, yeah.
But I mean, he is, from his perspective, he is this chosen one for this ancient civilization he wasn't even aware of.
Although that's still better than being a Cobra Commander, because your, rising story has turned into he becomes Gollum. Like that's not a great on the rise.
But he's so cute as little snake.
Was a man.
That's the other part of the movie is it becomes a buddy comedy.
Oh, I love that. I watched that whole movie.
That was Roadblock, right?
Yeah.
Roadblock, yeah.
Yep.
That was pretty cool.
If they had a little plush that you wore that was Cobra Commander.
Where Cobra Commander is a suit. Yep.
Totally, yeah.
If that was made today and G.I. Joe is as big,
God,
yes, you would have the stuffed Cobra Commander as a snake you could hang out with.
Yeah, I did like Cobra Commander in this. I thought he was as underhanded as always when he saw the assassin running towards Serpentor's lair.
Cobra
And he's like,
Commander
let's go the
delivers.
other way.
He does what you want him to do in this.
Yeah, I think he functions well as underhanded, but like, you know, ultimately he always does. You can always count him on to do that. I thought he was well done in this, and it was a shame at the end that he's just a snake. It was just, like, too bad. They hold him up at the end like he's a fish. They're like, look at him. He's a weird now.
Well, I think in like, again, not that I didn't watch. I just know it from the commentary and watching a few videos online of post the movie. I think he ends up in like Serpentor's like terranium.
Yes,
or something.
I think
they completely reverse it.
Yeah.
Cure him later.
Afterwards. So when the movie's over, they return Cobra Commander back to a humanoid form that is still snake-like, and that's when he gets the medal. That was one of the Cobra Commander ones that I had.
Yeah, the silver metal one. Yeah,
silver one. And they turn and he in turn turns Serpentor into an iguana.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah,
justice is best served cold.
There's the new Australian. There's like
cold-blooded.
The Australian Cobra bad guy mercenary has a pet iguana, and Cobra Commander's like, okay, well we're using the same technology that brought me back to my.
I mean, it makes sense.
We're gonna reverse that and mix Serpentor with an iguana, who then wanders off and is never seen again.
Do you think?
And that was the way they got rid of Serpentor.
I mean, it works. Do you think when Cobra Commander heard Serpentor go, "This I command," that Cobra Commander is like, "No, but I do the commanding. I'm Cobra Commander." I always felt just a little bit bad for him for that.
Poor naming right there.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Also, like, what do you think Serpentor is like on off days or after work? Like, what is he like eating a pizza? Is he intense?
That man has no chill.
He never turns off.
Well, he's made from the world's worst, you know.
Oh yeah, I wrote it down.
Dictators and monarchs.
Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Ivan the Terrible,
Chemical X.
Oh yes, the secret ingredient is love. Vlad the Impaler, Montezuma, Sun Tzu.
That was a good group.
That was all in a Rise of Serpentor. A Rise of Serpentor, right?
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Did you
go?
Thanks, Kevin. You're so polite. It's the Midwestern politeness.
Oh yeah.
So my notes are, it's so similar to Transformers though. Like Serpentor gets thrown through the base, just like Rodimus through Galvatron through Unicron. Penguin, Galabulus gets his eye punctured, just like Unicron gets stabbed in the eye by one of the spaceships. I mean, come on. They didn't wanna...
And they break the teams up, like some are captured.
Oh yeah,
and then
the music is the same at some points. Like the words are different, but the music is the same.
Well, here would the movie be better if it was given the badass soundtrack that Transformers had?
Yes,
because it wasn't given that because it was direct to video.
100%, I think. Yeah.
If we got like the touch going, I wrote down other like parallels and like the court scene. There's a court scene in Transformers, and it is iconic.
Way better.
The court scene in this is Falcon going like, "It's not my fault. I just, effed up everything there was."
Let's be honest, though. It's more realistic because he pretty much complains that it's not his fault, says he didn't do anything wrong, and then someone goes behind the scenes and is like, "Well, they're related to me," and then the court's like, "You're good."
I mean, it's unfortunately true, but it doesn't have the iconic. Spare me this mockery of justice.
Guilty or innocent, feed it to the Sharkticons.
Very good. Yeah. We think that the BET, the broadcast energy transmitter, would ever be used to transmit free energy across the globe.
No.
That's the most unrealistic thing of this movie.
Well, their protection of the BET was also unrealistic. I wrote down, here's Duke. They're after the BET, so let's leave it and run away. I mean, fall back and regroup. Yep, definitely that. They just leave. As soon as they realize what they're after, they just leave it undefended. Like, what are we doing?
Well, that was like, there was also a device, as we learned from the writer, that just came in at the end of the movie, and they were like, how do we get rid of these spores?
Yeah.
We need something to get rid of these spores. So I guess it was.
Which is why it's just like put randomly in the movie.
Yeah, it's a very weak sort of MacGuffin.
Do you think he wrote MacGuffin into the script?
I do.
Like, I'm not going to tell them that it's a MacGuffin because otherwise in the movie they'll be like, get the MacGuffin!
It will be the unobtainium of,
Cobra Law has the MacGuffin!
Yeah.
I'd watch that movie still, though. I mean, they had sandworms.
I would respect them more if they were honest like that, But the sport, all of these different things. It's sort of like, where did they come up with that? Because the spores, it's like, okay, well, all right, what do the spores do? Oh, we're going to launch them into space. Okay. You hate the whole point is they hate inorganic technology, but the only way for
Yeah,
the spores to
they
operate
need the
is
human.
via a very inorganic BET to make them pop. So it's like, oh, so you're just hypocrites.
Well, I mean,
You're just
they are fascist, I would say, and I think hypocrisy is one of the hallmarks of fascism.
fair.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. So they're going to use the lowly human technology to get
Right.
their technology to then but then what happens after that? See, that's the other part of the plan that just drives
Your
me
whole
crazy.
plan
That
is
as a
stupid.
kid, I never know. As a kid, I was like, that makes sense. Now I'm like, wait a second.
well, their plan ends up to be an episode of Rick and Morty when everyone's Cronenberg.
Yeah.
Right? So
Oh, yeah. But like, so they've existed for at least 40,000 years. The Ice Age put them back in the Himalayas. Why there? I don't know.
No, yeah.
And they never came out again.
It's
They
just
couldn't beat these lowly cavemen with their
biding their time,
fire
Kevin.
and sticks. And like, okay, maybe I know why. Because they're stupid. Because let's look at their timekeeping piece. This is the thing about
Hey.
the time stick.
The worm does a great job, and it's great for stabbing people in the eye.
Yes, the time worm on a stick. It's an inchworm that crawls around a magic, like a wand. You know, if you had pocket watches, maybe in the last 40,000 years, you would have succeeded. I did love their technology. I have a whole list of all the weird stuff, like the clam prison.
That was amazing. Yeah.
Love that.
The tree of defense or whatever, the vines of defense.
Or the four-headed snake that cuts through the fence at the opening. I mean, you could use wire cutters, but why not have a four-headed snake that...
wire cutters are pleb.
Or a whoopee cushion amoeba thing that knocks out guards.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah,
I loved all of it.
I did appreciate that he tried to integrate sci-fi into the movie, but by the same token, like if I'm going to see a G.I. Joe movie, I don't want to see a sci-fi movie. Like that's not what I signed up for. But I did like Sergeant Slaughter's unstoppable. Let me just throw the face hugger at him and incapacitate him. Yeah, that seems right. That's the only thing that's going to put him down, so makes sense.
Well, I like that Sergeant Slaughter is the same strength as Nemesis Enforcer. Like he's that's
or
strong.
Anyone else conveniently. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen more Sergeant Slaughter with the Renegades or whatever the hell they were.
Well, I mean, I'm guessing that's what they were going to go for the next season if that had gone anywhere.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for the Renegades. Like one was.
I just like Sergeant Slaughter. I mean,
one was an ex-circus acrobat.
Didn't make a lot of sense, no.
Okay, guys. So sure. An ex-NFL guy as well. Like I wondered if they were trying to capture the sports market because they also had Big Lob.
Big Lob. Big Lob honestly was kind of fun because he's crazy and talks to himself and he's only basketball and no matter what's happening.
Let's talk about the dress code.
He's basketball.
Why does G.I. Joe have more lax being the military?
Special forces. You know, they need to be able to blend, so the basketball jersey lets you blend in certain urban environments. I don't know. I have no idea.
So he can blend in urban environments, and the guy who had the Hawaiian shirt can blend into Margaritaville. Like he can just go to like any like boomer.
Yeah, that's true.
Concert and totally blend.
I think he was supposed to be like a Magnum PI type of person.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And then Law and Order, who's every loss prevention person I've ever worked with at a retail store, like way overzealous security guard thinks he's a cop, and like the only reason he has any power is because his dog is good.
Yeah. Can we talk about Jinx? I actually like the character of Jinx.
I agree.
Yeah, I like Jinx too.
I think one of the few redeeming new characters.
And when she plays, what's the sport? Ambo Jitsu from Star Trek with a giant. What do they want?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like the Vulcan mating.
Well, it was kind of like that, but also like the Next Generation episode with Riker and his dad.
Oh yeah.
And they have the blind visor, and they have the giant American Gladiator.
Yeah.
Giant
knock you off the podium things.
Yeah. I liked that aspect of it.
She was drawn oddly though. She reminded me of like a character from like Captain Planet or something.
Yes.
Her face was strange.
The commentary about
it was a little much. Yeah.
What the executives were sending over to make her look like was very weird.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I mean, what was it? I think it was in the commentary. Like somebody, the guy in the commentary said like he thought she was a Hispanic character because of the way they killed
Yeah,
her.
and Buzz was saying like his wife was Asian, so he was struck by how just odd her appearance was compared to like what it probably should have been.
And that the executives were sending over morgue photos of Asians to draw like that.
And didn't he say something like,
"What the hell?
You know, Asians can be pretty, right?" And they were confused by that. Like the whole thing was bizarre.
I mean,
my God.
There was like in the 80s the height of the Japanese phobia. Like, so I guess maybe it was part of that.
I don't know, it was an interesting little peering behind the scenes.
I mean, they could have like had some manga influence. I mean, Voltron was on the air at that time, so we were clearly like there clearly was a manga influence, and because Voltron wasn't a sleeper hit, people enjoyed Voltron.
That's
yeah, I mean, I had Voltron toys. So.
Yep.
So they could have easily drawn Jinx to be a little bit more in line with those characters, or have an artist from there, like do the template. For
that would have been nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So the character would look like they were supposed to, and not like odd. Like you can't really identify what Jinx is, at least from the cartoon.
It wasn't like bad. It just struck me as like that seems off in some manner, especially since they're trying to like very much give her an Asian heritage.
Well, I can't remember if it was in the commentary or maybe something I read. I think I don't even know if the timelines line up. I think she was also like little influenced by Vasquez from Aliens. Possibly.
Oh, really? That makes sense. Well, he was a big sci-fi fan. Like that was clear.
Yeah, he was. Well, the writer said that he was influenced by like Nausicaa and Dune. Yep. And once he said Dune, I was like, oh, Godulus.
Marauders.
Well, yeah, and like Godulus is clearly Baron Harkonnen.
Clearly,
the floating orb thing.
Yes, and the worms. We had giant worms. At the end.
Yep.
Yeah, I liked that aspect of it. And when he said that, I was like, it clicked. I was like, oh, of course. Yeah, okay. But like Jinx was instrumental at the end, saving, I think, Falcon with their twirly thing over the chasm with Sergeant Slaughter spinning her.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, she was. Yeah, I think she's the best of the new recruits that we got in the movie. I mean, I liked it. I mean, I enjoyed Beachhead also, but Beachhead is not a new recruit. He's apparently. No. Again, I don't know enough about G.I. Joe from watching it, but that's
Beachhead was, I think, from the get-go.
Yeah, I think he was. I think he was in Gen 1, or the first season.
Yeah, I think he's like third in command or fourth.
Oh, he might be. Yeah. And he gets to stick around. Apparently, everyone else gets to like. I was watching this movie. I'm like, there is no Snake Eyes, which is one of my favorite characters.
I was just going to say that.
That seems like a large omission.
Where was Snake Eyes?
No Snake Eyes and no Storm Shadow.
Yeah. And then after that, I was thirsty for a little Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes, so I ended up watching G.I. Joe Revolution
I think that's the whole story, isn't it?
I was like, these characters are great. Why did they not have them in there at all?
Maybe they couldn't fit it into the story. He was trying to do more military sci-fi, and when you throw like ninjas,
put him in the first 3 minutes, man.
He was in
Snake Eyes was, but I don't know if Storm Shadow.
I don't think he was.
I remember seeing Storm Shadow.
No. You see Snake Eyes in the beginning clips, but that's it.
Where in the pantheon of ninjas from the 80s does Snake Eyes land? And like ranking, like is he the best ninja? As a kid, I thought he was like way up there.
Ninja Turtles are clearly better.
Like
they weren't sewer. They train with a rat. I mean, come on.
Like he's
or what about ninjas?
Like he's better. He's like better than Shredder, but not quite as good as like Raphael.
Maybe. I wonder that. Or like Storm Shadow is cool. He dresses in white. He doesn't even need to hide. He's that good of a ninja.
I was just gonna say, from our '80s cartoon ninjas, is our template Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes, and the Ninja Turtles, or are there other?
Well, Kevin was trying to bring in Botsmaster for a second.
Botsmaster, ninjas.
Yeah, I don't know what the words were for that.
I had to look this up because Storm Shadow reminded me. Nightbird from TN.
That was in
you remember, Keith?
That was in Transformers, though.
The female ninja bot from G1 Transformers. As a kid, I was like, what? And then as an adult, I looked it up recently, and I was like, oh, it was a lady ninja robot. Okay.
That was a weird episode. I kind of always wish they did more with that, because like you could have easily explored Cybertron. I mean, not that this is a Transformers podcast, but
there's enough crossover.
So much world that you could have done that you just didn't. But whatever, it's fine. It's no worse than the writer on this show saying he killed Duke deader than a mofo, and then if you just watch the animation, like he clearly dies.
He got a stake through the heart.
Then you listen to the audio, and it's just nonsense compared with what's on screen.
Well, like everyone cries. Hawk like looks directly at the camera and has tears running down his like.
Yeah, and he has like the "this bud's for you, brother" moment. But like if he's not dead, it means nothing. Like, what did you do?
Would it have been better if he turned gray and put his head to the side?
He essentially did. His hand relaxed. He turned his head. Like, he's dead.
I think the story would have been much more interesting if they had killed Duke and then had to figure out how to bring him back to life. Like that.
Oh my God, Zombie Duke!
Zombie
Yes.
Duke solving a
Here
hate
for it.
plague. Yeah, why not just go all in?
You know, we're just.
I mean, if you're gonna crib off of Transformers, just
Do it all the
whole
way.
thing.
Yeah.
There's also other ninjas. Are we doing live action? No, probably not. I was thinking Last Dragon.
Oh yeah. I mean, Leroy Green is that? I don't
Leroy
know.
Brown?
Leroy Brown, I think. But and then you do like the crappy '80s like Sparks or Smoke or whatever that was.
Yeah. Anyways, they should have had more Storm Shadow and.
I agree. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's only in hindsight or like nostalgia that Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow grew to popularity, and then
True. I mean,
maybe
he didn't have speaking lines. I don't. As a kid, I just liked it. It was a ninja toy.
Mhm.
I don't.
Yeah, I mean, you got to
really remember sympathizing with the character because what is there?
I mean, he also goes around cutting guns with a sword. Like, yeah, that guy has to be badass. He's at a severe disadvantage unless he's Bruce Lee and like the gun is a focus point of.
Yeah, you're hindered by having something
confuses you.
I mean, I guess it's like I mean, there are two different types of I mean, there's the cartoon we're talking about in the movie, but then the Marvel comic line went on for a lot longer and apparently had a lot more. I mean, I can't speak. I didn't follow the franchise enough to say which one's better. I heard the comic book and the characters and the storyline, and that was very good. So maybe some of the stuff that we enjoy now, looking back at this stuff, came out of that.
Have you ever read because they were talking about Buzz Dixon wrote a like Most Dangerous Man Alive or something, and someone was saying like that's the ultimate Cobra Commander story, but I
haven't read it, but they're the same guy who did the commentary that we listened to. He did a whole episode on it because I think Kindle stopped.
Yeah, it's gone. You can't get it.
You can't get it anymore. But apparently, that's like everyone says that's the best. That's the origin of Cobra Commander that most people would have liked to have seen in the movie.
Is that the used car salesman origin?
I don't remember.
Oh, I know in one continuity he's a used car salesman.
Thing? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what the new continuity is because they've relaunched.
Can you imagine going to buy an auto and oh my God. I don't know if I'd buy that car or run away screaming.
Oh, that sounds like a movie Todd Phillips should make. They should make Cobra Commander. Joker.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Okay, so in that vein, what would you have done to improve this movie?
Good question.
John, how about you?
That's a tough question. Yeah, I mean, Cobra Commander got to me as soon as we called him a used car salesman, which would have been a more interesting backstory actually, because you can like understand it. It's like the frustration builds, and you decide I'm going to take over the world. Cool, and it also explains why he's so bumbling, rather than being just citizen scientist. What would I do to make the movie better? Well, I probably would.
And you can't say cut it after 3 minutes.
Besides that, I probably would have, acknowledging the purpose of the movie was to showcase as many characters as possible. I get that. So you're going to be jumping around, which is my biggest complaint. But I would have figured out a way to at least weave the stories together in a way that made some more sense. Like, I think I would have completely revamped the Falcon character. There would have been a standard hero's journey to go with that, and I would have set him up it would have been a parallel to Transformers. He would have been set up to, like lead a team of G.I. Joes, not necessarily lead the G.I. Joes, but something more redeemable. But make it also more interesting of like, this is what it's like to join G.I. Joe. This is what their purpose is. This is what he screwed up. This is what he learned. Like, all we got was that, you know what? If your half brother works for their place, they can get you off anything.
It was originally worse. He said it was supposed to be Hawk's brother, right? So
yeah, that would.
He would have been higher up the food chain.
Worse than Hawk. And the other thing,
Hawk, Falcon.
Hawk doesn't have any. Like, Hawk doesn't have any real dimension to him. Not that Duke had that much dimension either, but like, we knew Duke. You see Duke in the field, and even as a kid, I remember like the difference in characters is always the general is the one who stays behind and gives the orders in a show like this, and then there's like the second in command who's the cool one who does all the stuff out in the field. So there wasn't enough with Hawk to really like be like, who the hell cares who his brother is? Like no one's gonna
Is he
care.
the one who was got in the helicopter, or is that someone else? I wasn't like a GI Joe guy.
Eventually, Hawk got
Did they have
involved
Hawk
to some
do
degree
something in this movie?
in this movie. Yeah, I think that was the other thing. Like they all wear their like Hawaiian shirts while flying planes. So obviously they have very advanced, fully pressurized cockpits that don't have to worry about like flight suits. It's great, great technology.
I mean, you also can jumpstart a helicopter by spinning the blades while sitting on top of it.
It's a known fact. It's like a Ford Model T.
Yeah, and then you just stay on top. You're safe.
The next time, like, my airplane can't get their, jet engine started, I'm just going to volunteer to go out there and spin them by hand.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
I encourage you to do that.
I appreciate your confidence in me. Thank you.
I don't think you well, Keith, on that. And it needed some sense of like where we're going and why. Like, what was the purpose of G.I. Joe?
I also, I mean, John, it's a tough call. Like, how do you improve this movie? I mean, to improve this movie, I probably would have used the original cast and integrated the new people more with the original cast instead of pushing them all aside. I'm actually okay with the weird sci-fi stuff. I don't know.
I agree.
I mean,
if it's done well,
I don't know enough about G.I. Joe itself to like say like. I don't know. I think I don't know if again, G.I. Joe just wasn't my thing. So a lot of people, I'm sure, were into the military aspect and the more rounded reality of G.I. Joe. But for me, I would probably want to change it up a little bit. So I'm fine kind of retooling around Cobra Law, changing the name Cobra Law probably.
Yeah.
And I'm with John, change Falcon's storyline. But yeah, bring back the old guys, bring back the G1 G.I. Joe people and have them be like the leads instead of like breaking the story up with all these new people.
Yeah, I did watch G.I. Joe and I liked it, but I think I liked the villains way better. I always thought Destro, certainly Baroness, were like cool. I don't know if putting them more in the movie would fix it.
Yeah.
Because it's very Cobra-y anyways. But certainly if you cut this movie just to the sci-fi parts, I would definitely watch that movie. But I think what John's saying is correct. Like, if you actually gave Falcon like a redeemable backstory, or like the little things in life, if someone's just like inept, redeemable. So like Hot Rod was kind of just what his name is. I think that would have vastly improved it too. Also, I would just watch a whole movie as the buddy comedy movie with Roadblock and Cobra Commander. Also, more spores, because anyone screaming, "Not the spores!" just love. That's great. Put more of that in there. Spore everyone. I don't care. What about you, Keith?
Yeah, Keith, what's your?
I'm kind of the James take where like G.I. Joe is not at all my jam. I don't care about humans. I don't care about military stuff. Like I want robots and mayhem. But I think they could have leaned in. I mean, I don't know if this would have worked on kids, but I think it would have been interesting to explore why is Cobra still around? Like, G.I. Joe is either inept or like there are people in the government that are pro Cobra, and like that's the reason Cobra continues to exist. So I might have gone more of like with the Cobra infiltration of the government aspect.
You do like a Hail Hydra type of.
Yeah, and then like maybe expose some like giant plot, and G.I. Joe has to kind of like quash that, and then. I don't know, maybe you introduce, I have no idea. I don't know how you introduce the sci-fi aspect. Like, to me, that's interesting, but I don't know if G.I. Joe's target audience is leaning into that, whereas maybe they're more interested in, like, I want to see military vehicles and, like, stuff I'm used to. But that's not...
I mean, I thought it's funny, because all my characters I liked, I'm thinking back now, I like Zartan and Zarana and the other the sibling and
I think
Tomax.
the baddies in G.I. Joe are more interesting. I think
like Tomax and Zaymont. One, who names their kids that? But two, were interesting characters.
Like in Transformers, I think it's more split. Like people love Optimus, but like I'm not a G.I. Joe fan, but the good guys are kind of boring. Is that unreasonable take?
Maybe
except for like
being super fans,
the ninja.
We're going towards the other side. I don't know. Yeah. Like did you guys ever watch M.A.S.S?
Oh yeah.
M.A.S. Crusaders were
Venom is more interesting in that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was Venom.
I mean,
and
they're
Cobra.
Yeah.
It was Transformers meets G.I. Joe, essentially.
I mean,
And
Venom is also wildly bad at being evil. They're just not good at it.
Yeah. But that called to me, I think, equally, if not more, in totality than G.I. Joe did. Because
but you got to deal with T-Bob. T-Bob sucks.
I liked T-Bob.
It's like the Orgo character of M.A.S.S, come on, man.
Yeah, he was helpful at least and cute.
Is T-Bob like that Buck Rogers robot that like?
He's like an egg,
him, probably.
an egg scooter.
He's an egg scooter who's like, oh, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
He's the character
you
for
kids.
Have
that character.
Like not that but he does talk.
Keith, I like your Tom Clancy like subversion of Cobra into the.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a bit much for 8 to 10-year-olds or whatever they thought their demographic was.
I would watch that story. I mean, I also think in retrospect, like what would make this movie better? Like why at the time, I guess they just weren't doing these things. You should have made G.I. Joe Transformers the movie. Like they should have.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
that would have been amazing.
The properties over and made it.
I'm 100%.
Yep. Our brains as children just would have exploded.
Yeah.
That's the movie. You have these two properties that you're clearly producing movies with at the same time. Just cross them over. That would have made lots of money.
Yeah. Instead of doing Headmasters, throw a G.I. Joe in the cab. I mean,
that might be a modern sensibility versus keeping them separate. But I think that is the correct choice. Clearly, they're so easily interwoven. I think I was reading this. I didn't read the comics. I was reading about them. Didn't in one of the comics, Cobra Commander's secret inorganic tech
yes, he's a dealer, right?
He was a dealer of Decepticon technology, and that's why he was cast out of Cobra Law. I think.
Yes, I think so. Well, the thing with is like when Marvel got these properties, they were licensed because they got the G.I. Joe property, they got the Transformers property. So those properties became, while they were licensed, part of the Marvel universe. So like all those things were fair game for crossovers. I mean, there's a whole, I think, Transformers crossing over with Spider-Man. Like it was.
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't know
there's a comic book where Megatron is fighting the black costume Spider-Man because that's when they got the. So but I guess I'm thinking from modern mentality. I guess cross over the properties. Yeah. I mean, I know they try to do, like, I've heard so many attempts now. They try to do it like, oh, we're gonna. I mean, they do it currently in the comic books. G.I. Joe Transformers. They've rebirthed that universe, but they were trying to throw Visionaries in there.
Oh my god,
M.A.S.S, and like make a whole like connected.
I mean, I don't know how you get Visionaries in there, but yeah, you could do the M.A.S.S certainly.
I don't know why they didn't lean to it more though, because like Transformers, they did have an episode where it was Cobra Commander. I mean, his name was Old Snake, and like he was an arms dealer or something. But and then he like it pretty much hisses at the end when he's trying to describe. He's trying to do like the Cobra rallying cry, and he starts coughing. It's like, okay, that's Cobra Commander.
Funny. That's
like, why didn't they just fully lean into that?
I don't know. I saw that clip when doing research for this. I was like, what is this, Old Man Cobra? Like, I'll take a look at that. I'm like, wow. I was like, wow, what episode of the cartoon show is this that they pulled this from? So,
speaking of improving the movies, would you still end the movie with Serpentor being defeated by his cape being caught in his chariot?
It's very realistic. It's the little things that bring us down, Kevin.
No capes. When I saw that, I had forgotten about that. I was just like, really? It's the cape? Like, that didn't come into play, like, comparing that to Transformers the movie. Like, imagine if they were defeated by, like, Starscream's cape.
Yeah, I don't...
Like, it's...
Yeah, I don't know what the fitting ending for Serpentor would have been. I mean, it's. I actually don't mind the ending so much, considering he's such a bombastic, overzealous guy that him, like, dying by the length of his cape.
It's nice,
it's sort of like,
it's a nice like anti.
I mean, to have like whatever, like Falcon or Sergeant Slaughter or Barricade, like beat the crap out of Serpentor. I don't know if it's just like, okay, they had a fight. He's none of those people are going to kill him. So like, sort of like him. Was it hoisted on his own petard? Is like it's kind of funny.
Yeah, exactly. I did like when he was in prison, in the energy prison, and he grabs the only thing, and he starts. He's this like monumentally evil person, the summation of humanity's evils, natures. And what's he do in prison? He throws a pillow at the boss.
Kevin, he's you. He wants a clean Klingon prison. He doesn't want any fluff, no help.
That's
wants
true.
to lie in his hard shelf bed and
yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I think they mentioned that in the writer commentary, and that was a part of it when it happened. I was like, what? He just threw the only nice thing that G.I. Joe gave. What the hell's wrong with this guy?
I also like G.I. Joe left him in his whole regalia. Like,
But he's also, but he's also a child.
The snakes.
Literally a child. Like he's only
Yeah,
what, like
he's
1 year old
yeah,
at this point.
yeah. I mean, in timeline, I think he's like was just cloned.
yeah. He's about
Yeah.
1 year old, I think. That's who G.I. Joe is beating up. They're beating up 1-year-olds.
I'm not touching that one.
But I also, again, it goes back to the whole thing. Like, what is Cobra Commander's what is Cobra's purpose again? Like, because like,
Well, they try to take over the world often and fail.
Are we asking? Do they need a mission statement?
I'm
Is
just
that where
saying,
we're going?
like, this movie introduces Cobra Law, which the mission statement seems to be to mutate the entire world and get rid of the humans. Which
Right.
probably is not the mission statement that Cobra Commander has been.
No.
Someone check their 403C application, see what they put as their
Well, my
intended purpose.
recollections are them just vaguely trying to take over either America or the globe. I think they had a cube set up with a weather dominator at one point.
Oh yeah, the weather dominator. I forgot about that.
Like various wacky hijinks to, I guess, subdue humanity.
If you're really going to work on like synthesizing the two stories, which you got to remember, like, the writer came up with it after the fact and is doing crazy sci-fi stuff in the movie, but it could be interpreted that like initially he wasn't supposed to like wipe out humanity. It was like, well, Cobra Law wants to come back out, and they're going to like sort of like be the dominant species of the world, and you know, make sure to like cow humanity into submission, blah blah blah. Just that Cobra Commander just epically screws that up at every possible turn. So like that would totally make sense. And now they're just like, nope, we're done. We're going to spore everybody, but then turn them into more primitive, dangerous versions of themselves. Which are like, so what do you do with all the posts for humans? Like, is it literally becomes like a Walking Dead scenario where you just have like a few Cobra Law people wandering the planet, like, oh crap, gotta watch out for the crazy mutated humans for how long? Like, not the most well thought out plan.
No, especially since they were driven back into their Himalayan retreat by cavemen, essentially.
I don't think I would have admitted that.
No, they just essentially made a whole...
Don't admit that, yeah.
I would have done some revisionist history right there.
Yeah.
Be like, yeah, we had a disease and we had to retreat to the caves.
It's too easy. We wanted a challenge.
I mean, also again, I guess we're starting to apply too much logic to it, which the writer in the commentary,
You can't apply too much.
Yeah, the writer in the commentary was like, once you start applying logic, the whole thing falls apart. But
like the Terradome being in one place.
Yeah,
just nuke it from orbit.
Right. I mean,
it's the only way to be sure.
There's also the fact that, like, again, if Cobra Commander is getting all his technology and money from Cobra Law, it never comes up like where'd you get that? Oh, I'm part of an ancient civilization.
He just flashes his card,
and they give me new technology periodically to try out. It's not important. It's not important. Just
imagine a comedy show with that premise with him. And he just, like, every episode goes back and they just give him... It'd be like a Looney Tunes, Wile E. Coyote with Acme.
I think there's your integration point. Like, this new and badass technology comes from the Decepticons, and then, like, we bring in the Autobots to try and stop this little arms exchange.
That's a lot.
I don't know. They could have gone so many directions with it and, like, went zero directions with it, which is a little frustrating.
Well, again, it goes back to the point they weren't thinking about a good storyline. They were thinking about selling,
I don't know what you're talking about. The writer only saw a scene being shot and was like, give me 5 minutes and I can fix this because this looks horrible. And they're like, nope, ship it.
Well, speaking of the toys, what toys of the movie or the show did you guys have?
John, you had some. You had
Renegades.
Them, right?
I had the Renegades. I had, I think I always wanted Globulus in that group. I think they were at my friend's house. I don't think I had them myself, but my
it was a 3-pack.
Cool. I'm not 100%. And the Renegades were like the good guy 3-pack. And
okay.
That's what I get. Yeah, and I was sort of like, but I want the creep. But my parents were like, they're really creepy looking. Why are we getting these like bug people toys? So that's now what the memory's coming back. Yeah, they were sort of like creeped out by that, understandably so, from what that was, sort of supposed to be. But otherwise, like I had toys that led into the movies, like the mobile command center thing, which they really don't feature much in the movie. But I think they had in the second season for a little bit. I don't know how many I got directly from the movie, but I know it definitely ticked up my G.I. Joe purchases, because there were tons of G.I. Joes that came out after the movie that weren't necessarily from the movie, but it was like every different type of Viper you could imagine for like every type of scenario. The one with
The
little
Vindo Viper.
yeah. There was the one that swam and had the little like webbed feet, but they also looked like snake webbed feet. Like
Oh, I never
all
saw
kinds
those.
of weird things. The ones with the big giant like the two big giant like flamethrowers called the Heat Viper, but it was 8 dot. It was like an acronym like H dot A dot E
Oh
dot
yeah,
whatever. And you're
like
like,
bats.
Oh yeah.
Bats, battle android troopers or something.
right.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I always wanted a bat. I don't know why. I never, and they were early on. I never got one.
I
always
got a
wanted
bat. It was
that
cool.
one.
It had, I think its arm could come off and put a
Yes,
different
you
robot
could, yeah,
arm.
Exactly.
And it had like a hologram, quote unquote, on its chest.
And I
Big
never,
on the holograms back then.
I never got one. But you know, that was because there were so many. And at that point, your parents were like, "We're not spending your college tuition on GI Joes,"
Yeah.
which is what it would have cost when you add up all the toys.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it
I had
did succeed in,
Globulus.
it did succeed in getting, I think, more purchases going, and because GI Joe was still selling a lot of toys up until at least 1990, and that was also when the last show by DIC finally ended. You know, but I think the movie helped with that to some degree. But wasn't it aired only as a 5-parter,
Yeah,
just as part of the next season or whatever?
yeah. It got me to buy my parents or my brother. I have an older brother, so it might have been a hand-me-down of a Globulus. Or I always want to say Globulus, but it's
Globulus.
Globulus.
He's got extra
Yeah.
U's in there.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Feels like he's got too many U's.
What did you think Burgess Meredith thought of his character?
I mean,
I
Orson
think-
Welles in Transformers, so
That's true.
whatever.
I think he
But
thought
yeah.
about the paycheck, but I love the clips I've seen online where they just like have his character from It's a Wonderful Life, and it's just like completely like challenging his very own existence. And that might as well be. But you know what? People like that, like when you see like, I love seeing interviews with the Star Trek cast years down the road, particularly the engineers. And the interviewers are always like, "So did you know what this was? Like the warp injector, the antimatter cores, and everything else?" And they're like, "I had no idea. And the moment I said the line, it was out of my brain."
Yeah.
They actually, except for I think like one actor, none of them actually even tried putting together what they were saying. They just followed a script and relied on the writers. And I think that's what like somebody in a movie like this is doing. They know what they know it's a cartoon. They know it's some crazy thing. I bet you a year after it was recorded, he had no recollection of anything that really happened to that, except maybe being over the top. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine he was like, "Yes, I remember being like that. There was Shangri-La and the spores and everything else." I was like, "No, block that out," or just deliberately forgot it because it also made no sense.
I mean,
But he was
It
great at
is.
delivering it.
yeah. I mean, Burgess Meredith was probably no. I mean, that's obviously post Penguin, which I don't think he was happy with. That people obviously knew him from that mostly.
Wasn't he in Rocky?
He was
too?
though. I think this was
Yeah.
like I'm surprised. I think this is like post Rocky though. Maybe
Yeah.
like Rocky.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because they were. This is way post Rocky because they were saying they wanted him to do it in the voice of Mick
Oh,
or whatever
no.
from Rocky but it would be interesting to hear the behind the scenes on that because like every once in a while one of those people surprises you because they're like, oh, my kid used to watch the show, or like I guess with Burgess Meredith maybe like his grandkids or something.
Yeah.
It would have been cool, to maybe there's a moment where like my grandkid loved G.I. Joe, so I figured yeah sure I'll be the main bad guy
Yeah.
or whatever.
Right. I mean, that's why we got what's his name? It's Aragorn.
Oh, Viggo Mortensen.
Yeah, I like his kids were like, "No, you got it," and he's okay.
Oh really? I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, as far as I've read, I didn't verify with him, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fun to get like that little tidbit every once in a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I liked Burgess Meredith as Globulus. I mean, I think.
yeah,
I mean, despite the problems with Falcon's character, I didn't really care that Don Johnson was Falcon. And Sergeant Slaughter, you know what? I was watching pro wrestling at the time, and why not?
Yep, same.
See, like I was watching pro wrestling as well, but I don't think I cared for the integration of the two. For some reason, I was like, I didn't need to see him in.
You're such a contrarian, Kevin.
Well, I think because it to me in my head that I was like, well, why isn't everyone in there then?
What 10-year-old doesn't like a crossover of wrestling and G.I. Joe? Come on.
Well, I also didn't.
Be better.
I didn't like him as a wrestler. Not to have him come to my house and beat me up, but
Apparently, he's incredibly nice.
I've heard that as
I've heard
well.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. It restores my faith in humanity. That like,
Also,
Really
he
cool.
never served in the military, as far as I've read. which is
correct.
really funny.
I believe
it's just like a character.
Well, he's a symbol.
Yeah. But like, I probably saw him. I did go to wrestling matches when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, he's you know, like I said, I don't even like. I mean, those are all star power characters. It's not like Transformers the movie has Orson Welles, Leonard Nimoy, you know, Judd. Like those again. I mean, Leonard Nimoy is probably and Orson Welles the stronger of the three celebrities that they.
Yeah. But I did like it with Sergeant Slaughter as Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah. In a role he was born to play.
I'm actually kind of happy they just like left the original voice cast intact. I mean, you know, poor Frank Welker gets booted out for Leonard Nimoy for Galvatron. Like they recast.
Yeah. So Frank Welker was what potentially in this as the dog for
he was in
Law and Order.
Yeah, he was credited. Yep.
I mean, it's not like they get rid of Chris Latta as Cobra Commander and like, oh, let's bring in this actor to like
oh my, like who could you? Yeah.
You know, and I'm surprised they. I mean, I know it was they did the cartoon series before the movie, but it's not like they tried to get a big voice name for Serpentor, which is like you figure like an easy get considering like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that would have been the obvious one, I think.
And that actor's fine, except for his Cobra La La La, which the guy discusses is not. He doesn't have the voice tender for that.
I mean, it's hard to make that. It's hard to sell that one.
Yeah, I don't know how you're going to make that good, to be honest.
In the movie, when the Joes first go to Cobra La and they're attacked by the Cobra Lions, and all these aliens jump out at them screaming la 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 la, and I was like picturing like what was the most jarring thing for them? The weird cries, the living trees, this weird looking
clam prison.
Like, what was it?
No, not the clam prison. Anything but that.
I imagine for the Joes, like the like seeing Cobra Commander turn into a snake was probably jarring for a moment.
Oh my god, yeah!
Like,
the body horror in this was great. Him turning into with the initial accident and then slowly transforming into this like golem husk of a human. I that was very well done.
Cobra La was like, you know, was it H.R. Geiger versus meets like David Cronenberg, you know, sort of like.
Yeah. Now at the end. Did the Joes genocide the Cobra Lions? Like, is there any left?
Well,
like,
how big
it's 80s.
I mean, how big was their civilization? I guess is the thing. Like, how much were they underground in those Himalayan?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, you know.
I mean, and not to always be a Boromir, but I'm gonna Boromir it up. You got to take that technology. The next season of Joe had plant things, a la Joyce and the Wheeled Warriors.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what the show was, because they had like robots, but they also like flung plants at you sometimes.
Oh, the robots were part plant in Jason the Real Warriors. I think the enemy ones randomly.
Really? That's the foundation.
I liked.
I've never actually. I don't think I've seen an episode of that. So I'll have to.
It's a short show too. I don't think there's a lot of it.
And I think they were sued by Lucas Films because it was too similar because they had space wizards.
Really? Wow.
Who doesn't have space wizards? Come on, any self-respecting show's gonna have
some space wizards.
I'm sure all the episodes are on YouTube because I was like looking at Inhumanoids and like all 8 episodes are on like YouTube.
Yeah,
wait, there's only 8 episodes.
Yeah, because they canceled that.
Humanoids only got 1 season. Yeah. I was looking too because of the behind the scenes.
In my brain, I remember like liking that show. I didn't realize it was
like to John's point. Like John's parents wouldn't buy the Cobra La creatures. That's what happened to Inhumanoids. They wouldn't buy the monsters, and then
Well, Flint Dille even mentioned he's like, I forget what he said, but it was like a weird time of his life when he was writing for Inhumanoids, like something bad was happening, or it was like a drug thing. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but basically like stuff was going down in Flint Dille's life when he wrote Inhumanoids, and he's like, I think it shows in the final product. It's a little out there.
Yeah, it was really great. Was it Buzz Dixon was like, yeah, we went a little too H.P. Lovecraft in the episodes, and
I should rewatch
his explanation for the unmasking in the movie of Cobra Commander was good. He's like, it wasn't that hard. He's like, Globulus had 1 eye, and I figured it would be really jarring if the other guy had all the eyes. So that's what I did.
It worked.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I kind of appreciate the fact they didn't go with the burned like.
Oh, me too. I thought it was. That's been done by like everything.
Yeah, like the either deformed person or the burned person. They went with like a mutated. Like, okay, at least that's original. I mean, I don't know if the eyes thing is really the way to like be jarred.
It was.
I mean, it's unsettling.
It's freaky.
Yeah.
Well, is there any? What have we not covered with G.I. Joe? Did we get everything we wanted?
Let me look at my notes.
Yeah, because like
here.
Keith and Kevin, you got a bunch of notes. You were the well
I
prepared
have
people.
one of my notes. Oh yeah, one of my things was about Dr. Mindbender creating
Mind who?
Mindbender.
So he said mind mender.
Oh yeah.
That could be his alternate, a counterpart, mind mender.
What do you think about the idea that Cobra Law planted those like the genetic memory?
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's interesting.
To make him.
Yeah.
If just for the moment where he's like, I came up with Cobra Commander, and they're like, no.
Yeah.
We came up with it for you,
robbed
so step
him
off,
of his
buddy.
genius. This is sad. The poor guy thought he
I
was
liked
genius,
it.
Don't
and
feel
now he's
sad.
like,
Okay, is Dr. Mindbender a Nazi? I feel like he was a Nazi.
He sold out so fast too.
Now, and is that
that's
doctor?
the
Is that a
vibe I
PhD or?
oh no, it's
A
like
medical.
sociology.
Yeah.
You know it. You know it. And
He's got a literary doctorate, okay?
Yeah,
That's the monocle.
there's definitely something that, he's like Sigmund Freud's like grandchild. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
Like
But
gone
I
wrong,
think-
like gone right.
I think you're right, John. Like, from his perspective, it's his greatest triumph. And then someone's like, "Oh no, bro, I did that. You didn't do it." Oh my god, that'd be crushing.
He fell in line real fast, though. He was like, "Oh, you did? Okay. Hail Cobra Law. I'm in."
If someone could do that, you capitulate.
I mean, I think when Pythona's like melting steel with her fingertips, like,
Oh, that was a cool scene.
you know,
I mean, you have two great femme fatales, so.
It's true. Baroness is an amazing character. They probably should have done more with her.
Oh, I would watch a whole show with Baroness and Destro just mucking around,
which those
Yeah.
two,
causing
In
problems.
the G.I. Joe movie, the Retribution or Recovery, or I'm the worst G.I. Joe. I'm not a
Renegade?
fan, but no, what's
Revolution,
no, I don't think
right?
it's- Revolution. There you go.
Yes.
Her and Destro were like doing stuff on their own, and like that was like, yeah, this is what you should be doing. I think.
What was the
they're
show?
good
Because
together.
I had a ton of toys for Destro's Grenadiers.
Oh yeah, they had like,
Grenadiers.
well, I don't know if it was
Grenadiers.
a separate show, but that was like a subplot for Destro, because then Destro moved to a golden mask instead of a silver mask at one point.
Oh,
Right.
I forget about that.
And that's the Destro I had because I didn't get Destro early on.
Yeah,
And I was always annoyed that I was like, where is it in the shows? I want representation of my toys. That was the other thing that gets really frustrating about 80s shows is that if you mistimed it, you end up with a toy that's not on TV, and
Yeah.
you don't feel made whole as a result.
I got all the wrong toys, Mom.
And I blame it on the companies because they quickly took characters out,
oh yeah.
whereas they should have kept the old ones going and manufactured some. They could have still made money. They could have still made their money.
No, but they flushed toy
No,
lines as soon as the ratings came in. Like in Humanoids, like 8 episodes. The toys aren't selling. That's it. Pull it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's
Pull
crazy.
it. You know, or this character's
Well, like-
not doing well. Cut that episode. Cut that whole season.
I think you guys said that you hadn't seen the second season of Thundercats, but I also never caught
I have not.
anything after the movie for G.I. Joe. Like, I didn't know where they went to
No,
with the gold
Downhill,
mask and everything.
I hear.
yeah, they switched. Cobra Commander got the silver mask, like the not the original silver mask, like the
Yeah, I had that toy, but I had no idea why he was like a silver Darth Vader.
yeah, he basically
essentially.
became Silver Darth Vader, and then at some point they phase out. I didn't watch this religiously, but like I came on, and so like, and I remember the toys. At some point they transitioned from Cobra Commander into eco terrorism, and you had
What
and you had
Oh,
like a bald guy with like a scarred eye, and they were selling toys that like could squirt water, but it was like toxin and G.I. Joe.
I mean, when Captain Planet came on, he changed the world, didn't
Yeah,
he?
that's probably the same time as Captain Planet, to be perfectly honest.
They should have just ported Jinx right over. She would have fit right in.
Yeah.
So yeah, G.I. Joe eventually, I think, and then that was probably the last season, because I think they only did 2 more seasons after the movie because the animation was so bad and it was so poorly
Right.
received. So
Well, he was talking about the pyramid scheme that was Deke back in the
Oh, that
80s.
was crazy.
Yeah,
Where-
like we'll underbid this one, and then we need 2 more shows, and
It's
then
like,
we'll need
what
4
is
more
this
shows,
thing?
and then we'll need 8 more. It's like, oh my god.
yeah, that was. I mean, and it shows with with the Deke cartooning of the time, because I think Captain Planet was Deke also, and that was not high.
Oh, that does make sense.
that wasn't high grade animation, if I remember it.
No, not at all.
And Inspector Gadget later seasons were not good animation either, because that was like Deke started off strong as a regular cartoon company, and then they started cutting.
It is sad though, because like the Max, like that was his example of like they knew from the beginning this was going to be ultra low budget, and like you can do it if you know ahead of time what you're doing, but if you just walk in with the mindset of I'm going to do what I always did, but now I have half the money, like that's going to be terrible, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, plus also a lot of those shows were like I think they were trying. The Max, I don't think went on for a lot of episodes either. Like they and G.I. Joe was like I don't know, probably at least a 20 episode season, which
the Max they were smart. They cast from the beginning. He said he cast voice actors who were almost straight out of school because he knew there would be pushback if it was an established voice actor as to how they were doing the show. And he's like, I didn't do that because I wanted to be cheap. He's like, I did that because I wanted to make a different show and like they're more malleable when they're right out of school. So,
well, I mean, listen, you got to like use your budget correctly. Clearly, like we watched a lot of bad cartoons that came out from Deke.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What was it? It wasn't Robotech. It was Robotniks, or it was aliens who lived in robot bodies from the past.
I did not watch that.
And humans landed, and then the toys were like construction.
I vaguely remember this, but I don't know if I'm remembering the cartoon or the toy. Like it's like.
I believe you.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad cartoons then.
Because there was like, what was the one with Spacecom or something? That was a whole with the magnets, and it, like
I don't know.
hit the button and like the toy would transform on its own.
I remember that vaguely too. I can't remember from the cartoon.
It was Rock Lords.
Rock Lords.
Well, Rock Lords had, there was a crossover with that and something else I think too. I had a couple of Rock.
No, Rock Lords weren't that Masters of the Universe crossover or Masters? Yeah,
is that what it was? Okay, yeah.
Anyway, well. I guess we're getting diving deep into our.
We're in the weeds.
So I guess we'll bring it in for a landing. We'll bring it into the helicarrier or the aircraft carrier for a landing.
Somebody's got to jump on top of the helicopter and start this damn thing.
You're more like Chuckles, right?
Me?
I don't know.
Chuckles is what he's supposed to be an undercover like Miami Vice cop, and
is he mute too? Because he had like a word.
No, he didn't have any words.
Yeah.
Oh, he had none.
No, I thought he was.
I thought he had a word, but like
I
either
thought,
way.
Like my memory of Chuckles, I guess incorrectly, was like he would be this like wisecracking like undercover cop, and like he had no lines.
That's the hilarity of him being named Chuckles.
So, all right, audience. Well, we went deep into Transformers. We will return again for another 80s cartoon, but obviously I could not do this episode without my other co-host. So thank you, Kevin.
Cobra, la 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 la.
That was pretty good, actually. That was good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith.
They should have hired Kevin to do that voice.
Yes, yeah. And thank you, John.
Well, I'd say it was a pleasure, but it was more of an experience.
And listening audience, if you have comments, you remember seeing G.I. Joe the movie, you've watched it, and then listened to this episode, we'd love to hear from you. So you can put those comments in the Facebook group. We also are on Instagram at Secret Origins MC, and we will talk to you on the next episode.